Okay, so we're in Perek Mem Gimel Pasuk Chaf Zayin Vayish'al Lohem L'Shalom. Vayom HaShalom Avichem HaZokin Asher Amartem Ha'idenu Choy. Okay, so in this meeting of Yosef and the brothers, and all the brothers, Yosef, there's a focus on Shalom. He asks them L'Shalom, and he says HaShalom Avichem HaZokin, so the word Shalom is repeated there, and it's repeated again in their response. Vayomru Shalom L'Avdecha L'Avinu Idenu Choy. So, in this reunion of Yosef and the brothers, we are taken back to the beginning of Parashas Vayeshev, where Yosef was given the mission of Lech Nore'eh Es Shalom Achecha. That mission that he was sent on that ended in disaster is now being, let's say, reaching a resolution, because he is asking about their shalom. And in the next pasuk, when they respond about their shalom, that resolves v'lo yochlu daber the shalom from the beginning of Parashas Vayeshev. Okay, now about this shalom, we've spoken at length about Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin and its connection to our parsha. And there it says, Asom givulech shalom chelev chitim yasbiech. So the chelev chitim and the soiva, which Yosef is now feeding the brothers a meal, and which is symbolic of the fact that he's the one who controls the lechem and is going to take care of them and support them in the hunger. So that comes along with shalom, and there it says also nidche Yisrael echanes. And here we have this reunion between Yosef and the brothers. Okay, so there's this promise of shalom, but it's sort of a false promise, because the parsha ends with Yosef telling them, Alu l'shalom el avichem, and of course that's not a real shalom, because that means your father is going to die. So here we have a shalom avichem hazokin ha'idenu choy, and the answer is yes, shalom la'avdecha avinu idenu choy, and the parsha ends Alul Shalom El Avichem, and Vayigash says, well, Yehuda says, no, he's going to die. So, in as much as Shalom goes along with Avichem and Idenu Choy, the Shalom that Yosef ends the parsha with, telling them everything's going to be okay with you guys are Alul Shalom El Avichem, that's not possible. So, it's a fake Shalom. Okay. It's a fake shalom. And I want to talk about this, a few other places about the shalom that our story revolves around. And why do I say our story revolves around? Because not only does the beginning of Vayeshev focus on shalom, because Yosef has to find out shalom achecha, shalom atzayin, and v'lo yochlu daber l'shalom. But then the beginning of Parashas Miketz is also about shalom, where Yosef guarantees shalom paroi, as we've discussed at length. And about that, as we've discussed further, it says in Yeshaya, Perek, Chof Zayin, Pasuk Hey, and we're going to get back to these prakim in this shir. In Yeshaya, Perek, Chof Zayin, Pasuk Hey, it says, Oz yachazik b'ma'uzi ya'aseh shalom li, shalom ya'aseh li. So there's the ma'oz, there's the strength of Hashem, and that is the true shalom, as opposed to Perek Lamed, Pasuk Beis and Gimel, the ma'oz of Paroi is Baishas and Klima. So the real ma'oz is ma'uzi, the strength of Hashem, and that brings shalom. And the ma'oz paroi with which Yosef associates himself by guaranteeing shalom paroi ends up being Baishas and Kalima. And there it says, there in Perek of Zayin Pasuk Hey, after it talks about the shalom of Hashem, it says Haboim Yashresh Yaakov. Now Yaakov can come and take root, and Yisrael will blossom there. This is, as we've discussed, this is connected the descent of Bnei Yisrael to Mitzrayim. And of course, this is the haftarah of Parashas Shemais. This is Haboim Yashresh Yaakov. But the point, L'Neinenu, is that pasuk says Shalom twice. Yaseh Shalom li, Shalom Yaseh li, and that reflects in this pasuk that we're looking at now, Perek Mem Gimel pasuk of Zayin, where it says Vayishalom l'Shalom, and he said Ha-Shalom. Okay. And another place, we'll also get back to this, I think. Another place where you have the double Shalom. So we spoke about besides for the point of Shalom in the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev, the beginning of Parshas Miketz, there's a deeper meaning in Shalom, which is that it's the word of Hashem. So the whole theme of Nevuah that's going on in the Parsha of Yosef and the brothers, the Hainu, will Hashem speak to them? Do they have Nevuah or not? Or do they instead have dreams? That revolves around Shalom, because the word of Hashem is Shalom. Okay, and the great word of the Nevi'im is Shalom. I'm not going to go into why. That was something we discussed at the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev and in Miketz. And the beginning of Miketz. But one of the psukim we spoke about them was in Yirmiyah Perek Vav, Pasuk Yudalid, where he talks about the false Nevi'im that say Shalom, Shalom, ve'ein Shalom. And there's no real Shalom. So similarly over here, there's the Shalom of Mitzrayim, and that's not the true Shalom, as Yeshaya warns. As Yeshaya warns, the true Shalom is not from Mitzrayim. So don't say Shalom, Shalom when there's no Shalom. Just like over here, where there's this double Shalom, then the parasha ends Alula Shalom, but of course that's not really Shalom. Okay, so there's this question of Shalom. Of course, the opposite of Shalom is Milchama, and as it says in Sefer Micha, Perek Gimel, and this is where it starts Shimu Norah Shebes Yaakov, and this brings us back to the Yosef and the brothers. Yosef telling them Shimu Norah Chalem Azeh Shachalamti. Ayin Sham talks about not abusing the poor. Basically, they sold Yosef. And the other pasuk says, B'Akim pasuk says, they call out Shalom. V'asher lo yiten al piyam v'kidru alav milchama. They claim to be looking for Shalom. But if someone doesn't give them food, they dedicate war against him. So the question between Yosef and the brothers, whether they're going to be Shalom or milchama, revolves around food. Because Yosef thinks he's going to be in charge of the food, and in truth he is. And in this story, when they're eating together, that's when we have the mention of Shalom. Just a reminder, there in Micha, we're going to get back to this also tonight. There in Micha, the next pasuk says, "L'chein laila lachem et mecha zoyin v'choshcha lachem miksoyim." In other words, because these are fake neviim who are really all in it for the food. Of course, it reminds us of Amais, where Amatya told him, "Go to Yehuda and eat bread there," and obviously said, "I'm not a Navi." So remember we spoke about that. That is this question of what's the Navi in for? Is he in for the Lechem, or is he in for the Dvar Hashem, which is the Moshel, the Nimshel of the Rav. Anyway, so there it says, because the Nevi'im are in it for the food, therefore it's going to become dark, and they're going to lose the Nevuah. Ein ma'anei Elokim, Hashem is not going to respond to you. So that takes us to the theme of the brothers losing their nevuah because they abused their position, and they showed that they really cared more about eating. And that's, as we discussed, that's what the pasuk says, "Vayeshu le'echol lechem, vayisu eineim vayiru b'hinei achas yishmeim." That's the failed nevuah when they were sitting to eat bread, because they were caring about that. What they really cared about was LPM. And here, where they are eating together, now there's Shalom. Okay, so now that they're eating together and there's Shalom, is everything fine or not? This is the tension. This is what we're going to speak about more in this year. We spoke about this in the past also, I think. How much is their resolution now? Because even to the extent that there's some resolution, first of all, Yaakov is not here, and Yosef is very consumed and concerned with whether Yaakov is still chai. We'll talk about that soon. And also, of course, things very shortly break down. Okay, so in Pasuk of Zayin, he says, "Hashalom avichem hazokin asher amartem." I just want to point out that his question about avichem hazokin asher amartem parallels Pasuk of Tes of achichem hakotoin asher amartem eloi. So you have avichem hazokin asher amartem, and you have achichem hakotoin, corresponds to zokin, and also asher amartem. There you have eloi for some reason. Okay, and he wants to know ha'oidenu chai, and the answer is oidenu chai. And of course, when Yosef tells his brothers who he is, the first thing he wants to know is Ha'oid Avichai. Okay, so what's this about? Well, we have that when Yaakov heard the news, Vatechi, Ruach Yaakov. So that suggests that the question about the chai doesn't mean is he physically alive. It means is he well? Is he himself? Or about the chiruach, if you want to be very, very specific. But akapanim, so then the question is not just about whether he's alive, and therefore would follow, because that's the problem. If he's alive, then how does that follow sholem? Ha-sholem, ha-idin. So it suggests that it actually means, is he really himself? Okay. Now, of course, something to think about is they said oidenu chai, but really vatachi ruach Yaakov only happens later, so maybe it wasn't true then. Okay. But here's the thing. As we've discussed, this is all about the return of the. We discussed this in the last year and the one prior to it, I think. When the pasuk says that they heard they're going to eat their batzoharayim, so that's a reference to the return of the clarity of Nebuah. Because remember that pasuk in Micha that says it's going to become dark on the Nevi'im. And similarly in Amos it says, because you sell your brothers and you abuse the poor, therefore vevesi hashemesh batzoharayim in Perek Ches of Micha. So the inability to detect the kluv kayetz is the mashal for that is that the sun will set at midday. So therefore, when it says they come back to they hear that they're going to eat lechem at midday, as it says further in Amos Perek Zayin, the real rav is lishmar dvar Hashem. So the rav is not about food. The food is just a praxi or the manifestation of a lack of the dvar Hashem. And therefore, when the pasuk says they hear that they're going to eat batzarayim and they're going to eat lechem with Yosef batzarayim, what that means is on a deeper level that they are going to access the Dvar Hashem in revelation, with clarity, in illumination. Okay, so of course, because that's what the whole story is about. The whole story really is about Shalom, which is the Dvar Hashem, which is Nevuah, and Yosef and the brothers are having this debate about how to relate to Dvar Hashem. That's all we really care about. So when they're having the reunion, it's also about that. And why is this significant to this point that we just said? Because then ha'idenu choy and vatachi ruach Yaakov aviem is actually the real concern here. Because what we're looking for is nevuah, and that's what the real issue is about. So the shalom and the ha'idenu chai takes us to the Dvar Hashem, which is shalom, and vatachi ruach, which is the return of nevuah. Again, this brings into focus that they said Oidenu Chai, but he really wasn't. So, what does that mean? I don't know the answer for now. Okay? But I'll tell you like this, and there's another tension over here. There's going to be a lot of tensions in this year because not everything is resolved. But there is a tension here about the following. Here we talk about a reunion between Yosef and the brothers and everything is great. And if we have the return of the Dvar Hashem, and now it's the Tzoharayim, it's illuminated. However, the fact is that the hunger did not end through the Dvar Hashem until Yaakov came. Because as we've been discussing numerous times, the Mizmor Lamed Gimel and Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin, Hashem doesn't want the Guras Hasus. Rather, he wants the ones who Miyachlam L'chazde, the ones who understand Yashar Dvar Hashem, and Dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu. They're really looking for the Davar. Who brought an end to the Rav through the Davar? That's Yaakov. So that means that the return of the Davar, and the Davar of Hashem being the solution for the problems, actually only took place when Yaakov joined the brothers. So on the one hand, we talk about a reunion and this Shalom and it's Tzarayim. On the other hand, till Yaakov comes, there's no Nevuah, there's no access to the Dvar Hashem that can bring an end to the Rav. Okay, so that's a tension. Has something to do with Ha'idenu Chai, I suspect. And like I said, they claimed Ha'idenu Chai, but maybe he's not really alive. Okay. Good. And now, Patzach of Ches, they responded and said, Shalom la'am d'chol avinu Ha'idenu Chai, vayiktu vayishtachavu. Why'd they bow again? The Chayre Pashut, it's a way of expressing appreciation for him being so kind and taking an interest in their father. Vayisa'ena vayar. Now he picked up his eyes and saw as Benimin achav Benimin. Now right away we have a problem over here. In this Vayisa'ena vayar, he picked up his eyes and saw. We have a problem, which is that go back to Pasuk Tezayin. It says Vayar Yosef itam es Binyamin. He already saw Binyamin. So what is this picking up his eyes and seeing? Binyamin, he saw him already. So you could say, picking up his eyes and saw means some special looking, that he took a special interest. He focused on Binyamin. Fine. Okay, that could be. That could be. But I want to show you that this Vayisa Eina Vayar is very significant. Because we're talking about, as we said, the deeper meaning of this meeting is that the meaning of eating bread at midday, when Yosef and the brothers are together and trading shaloms, the deeper meaning is that the word of Hashem is back. Nevuah is back. Now, when did Nevuah cease? As we mentioned, Nevuah ceased in the beginning of Parashat Vayeshev, where it says, Vayeshvu le'echol lechem, vayisu eineim, vayiru, v'hinei archas yishmelim ba Megillah. Now, reminder, how did that mark the end of Nevuah? Because really, that was a mis-seeing. They were supposed to see the archas yishmelim ba Megillah and understand that it's a kluv kayetz, as Amos understood when he saw things properly. And that would teach them Boha Kates. Hashem is not going to forgive the Kates L'Ra. Hashem is not going to forgive you for selling Yosef. But alas, they didn't understand, because Vayeshvu lechol lechem, they didn't really, as Mincha says, you really cared about your mouth, you don't really care about the truth, about the toiv. Okay, so the loss of Nevuah is described as Vayisu eineim vayiru v'hinei archas yishmelim. So similarly, in this story, when there was a return of Nevuah, it says Vayisa eina vayar. Okay, now this opens up many, many questions. And the specific questions that it opens up are the following. As I said, there wasn't really a return of Nevuah now, because we're still waiting for Yaakov. Okay? So again, is it maybe, if Yaakov is truly Odenu Chai, as they said, then Nevuah would return, but that wasn't true. Okay? Or is this an attempt at return of Nevuah? Was Yosef also supposed to see something else? Like when the brothers saw Archaz Ishmael Ba Megillah. And remember, by the way, here again, those same items reappeared as the mincha. And the mincha elicited chen. He said, "Elikim yochnecha b'ni." Was he supposed to see something else? Okay, and if so, what was he supposed to see? There may be a clue about that soon. We'll see. But then maybe this is another misseeing. But on the other hand, it should be the return of Nevuah. So like I said, but maybe this tut stada over here, because really we're looking for the return of Nevuah, which depends on Yaakov Ha'adenu Chai. Okay, so I'm putting that out there. I don't have the resolution. I hope to, hopefully next week it'll become clearer, I hope. Okay, but what I want to do is like this. Okay, so I think I made that clear, that the parallel is striking, that in the story where they're once again eating bread together, this time together. Last time they ate bread with disunity. Yosef was in the bar which had no water, nor bread. And they sat down to eat bread. So there's this contrast between him dying from thirst and they're eating bread. And therefore they pick up their eyes and they see things incorrectly. Now that the Yosef and the brothers are together and they're going to eat together, now there's shalom, and now there's at least a possibility of seeing things correctly. Again, but then that means, was he not supposed to see Binyamin Achiv Ben Ima? Just like over there, it was really supposed to see a Kluv Kayet. So is Binyamin Achiv Ben Ima a remes for some Nevuah? Or is he not supposed to see him as Binyamin Achiv Ben Ima? He's supposed to see something else? These are the questions that I don't have the answers to. But I want to show you that point, and I want to tell you there's a suggestion of a return of Nevuah, which depends on, of course, the lechem, which is at the heart of the whole story, which is the praxi, or the moshel, I should say, for the Dvar Hashem. Okay? And a lot of this whole business is going to is merumas to, at least, we could say, in Yeshaya Perek of Zayin, through Perek Lamed. Once again, I will say for the last time that I'm not sure exactly how it all comes together, but I want to show you the Ramazim. Keep an open mind about these ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to put it together perfectly at some point. So I bring you back to Yeshaya Perek of Zayin. Let's start from the pasuk that's, in a certain sense, the most explicit. Okay, this is it. So I'm going to take you through Yeshaya Perek of Zayin and through Perek Lamed. Maybe a little and beyond. No, right, and that's going to. Okay, and that's going to indicate some of the ideas that are flying around in this, picking up his eyes and seeing Binyamin. But so I want to start with the pasuk that's in a certain way the most explicit. This is in Perek Lamed, pasuk Yud Tes, where the and pasuk Chaf, Perek Lamed, pasuk Yud Tes and Chaf, where the Navi talks about a nation, a people that is going to be in Tzion and Yerushalayim. B'choy lo sivke, don't cry. Chonon yochnecha lekol za'akecha. Hashem will be mechanen you when you scream. Kisham osay anach. When he hears you, he'll answer you, and he will give you v'nosan lachem adonai lechem tzaru mayim lachatz. V'lo yikonef oid meirecha v'hoyu einecha roises meirecha. You'll have bread and water. You'll have a little bit amount of bread and mayim. Okay, so there it says like this: don't cry. Yosef sees Binyamin, says Elokim yochnecha, and cries. He also cried another time, and here the pasuk says "B'choy lo sivke," twice, not crying, because chonon yochnecha, Hashem will be mechainen you, like Yosef blessed his brother. Elokim yochnecha, and he will give you lechem and mayim. We'll get to that soon. Of course, that's the focus of this story: whether we're going to survive the hunger or not. But so just to point, okay, that we have the yochnecha and the crying. Baal Turim points out that's the only place in Tanakh we have the word yochnecha, and Baal Turim says that there it says lekol za'akecha. So that's referring to the conversation that the Medrash says that Yosef had with Binyamin, and asked him about all his sons who were named for his missing brother. So that's lekol za'akecha, that Binyamin was crying for his missing brother, and that he named his children for him. And that's Elokim yochnecha b'ni. Okay, so that's a striking pasuk. But now I want to take you through those two prakim, and we'll see the broader idea, and what the get a little bit of a clue of what the Vayisei and Vayar can bring us to conceptually. Okay, so Perek of Zayin pasuk Hey starts. We're going to go through the psukim, some of them that are Negeya, and many of them who we discussed in the context of Miketz and Vayeshev past year. Perek of Zayin pasuk Hey Oz oy yachazek b'ma'uzi ya'aseh shalom li shalom ya'aseh li. Okay, so here we have the ma'oz of Hashem is the true shalom, as opposed to, as I mentioned, the ma'oz of Paray in Perek Lamed pasuk Beis and Gimel. The ma'oz of Paray leads to Baishas. And then we have the next pasuk in Perek of Zayin pasuk Vav haBa'im Yashesh Yaakov Yotzitz Ufarach Yisrael. Okay, they're going to come to Mitzrayim, but they don't belong in Mitzrayim, as it says in pasuk Yud Beis V'atem tuluktu la'achad echad b'nei Yisrael. You'll be collected one by one, b'nei Yisrael, and Hashem will take the nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim v'shtachim Hashem Har HaKodesh. You don't really belong in Mitzrayim. You belong in Har HaKodesh Yerushalayim, and Hashem is going to take you from there. Okay, now jump to Perek Tes, pasuk Tes Vav. By the way, I just want to mention that many of the psukim in Perek Zayin we've spoken about in the past, and the connection with Yosef and Paray. Okay, Perek Tes, pasuk Tes Vav says warns against, decries the people that are mamikim me Hashem lastir etzah. Now they hide from Hashem, they hide their Eitzah, and they say nobody sees us. What's this hiding the Eitzah? And Perek Lamed picks it up and says that they have an Eitzah not from Hashem, which is to go down to Mitzrayim without asking Hashem. And this is what we've been discussing at length, that the problem with our descent to Mitzrayim in the second half of Bereshis is that it happens without speaking to Hashem. But eventually, Vayir Elokim Elisah b'maras halayla says Al tirad b'miradam Mitzrayim. But everything until then, Yosef precipitating the descent through his dreams and the brothers following is all happening without speaking to Hashem. There further in Perek Tes, pasuk Chof Aleph. By the way, okay, I just want to, let's go and get Perek Tes. So that was pasuk Tes Vav was hiding from Hashem. Pasuk Yud Ches talks about eventually they'll be able to see again. Okay. And the poor people will be happy with Kadosh Yisrael. Kadosh Yisrael, as I've discussed in the past, is an allusion to Yosef. And Pasuk of Aleph talks about Vayatu bat Toyu Tzadik. These are the people that tilted the Tzadik and Toyu. This brings us to those Lashonis from Omos about the selling the Tzadik for shoes. And there it says Ishu b'no Yatu, I think, Elanara Akaponim. allusions to the abuse of Yosef. Okay, now pasuk of Beis says, here's what Hashem, next pasuk there, here's what Hashem tells Yaakov, Loi ato yevosh Yaakov. Now Yaakov will not be embarrassed. Remember, what does the embarrassment come from, as it says further in the next parak? Mo'iz parei. Mo'iz parei leads to baishes. When will Yaakov not have baishes? Bir oisa yeladav ma'aseh yodai b'kibur yakdishu shemi b'kedishu eskadosh Yaakov etzalekei Yisrael ya'aritzu. When he sees his children, that's as he says to Yosef, I didn't expect to see you, and now I even see your own children. So then, as the pasuk continues, the last pasuk in Perek Tes in Yeshaya, v'yadu sayei ruach binam. Then they're going to know bina. This is Yosef is supposedly the ein novein v'chacham kamaycha. The Nevi'im are not so impressed, and the real bina comes when Yaakov sees his children again. In other words, when they're reunited, and v'tachi ruach Yaakov. Because until then, as Perek Lamed begins, the banim sayrim lasis eitz of Eloi mini. Not speaking to Hashem. Okay. So the fact that you're going down to Egypt is a busha. Okay. Now, Perek Lamed pasuk vav. Masa b'hamois Negev. This is a masa about animals going down to the Negev. This is a caravan. There's a caravan going into the Negev, which is a desert, going to Mitzrayim. Be'eretz tzara v'tzuka lavi v'layesh. It's a land which is tzara v'tzuka, and there's wild animals there. Efeh v'saraf ma'oifif yisu al kesef ayorim chileim. They carry wealth on donkeys. V'al dabeshes gemalim oitzroisim. And they pile their oitzris on the humps of camels. Al am lo ya'ilu. So here you have this caravan going through dangerous territory to get to Mitzrayim. So they pile up wealth. First, they take all their wealth, they put it on the camels, and they take it through the most dangerous territory. Fine, say it. Ki'am merihu, again, banim kechashim. These are the banim who hide from Hashem, and they say, Asher amu l'royim lo yisiru. They say to the people, the seers don't see. Remember, we're talking about not being able to see. Okay, what am I? Let me explain why I'm so busy with this masa. Because what happened in Vayeshev, Vayisu Eineim Vayiru Archas Yishmaelim. This is what they picked up their eyes and saw. They saw an Archas Yishmaelim going to Gilead with all this wealth, which Yeshaya takes and says, look, people pile up their wealth on the camels. And they go, it's absurd because they go through this dangerous treacherous journey to get to Mitzrayim. It's no point. So this is a lesson that they could have taken from seeing another masa that they could have taken from seeing the caravan, which is they could have been struck by the absurdity of it all, which would be a message that they are going to eventually be doing the same thing. If they sell Yosef to Mitzrayim, they're going to eventually be going down to Mitzrayim for food and loading up their own mincha to flatter the king of Mitzrayim, or the vice king of Mitzrayim, Yosef. So this masa is foreshadowing what the Shvatim are doing. And there it says it's Eretz Tzara, and they put it on the Dabeshes. So the Ma'at Suri and Ma'at Davash is maybe a remez to the fact that, look, you're going through an Eretz Tzara, and you're piling up things on the camels. What's the point? Mitzrayim is help of a rik. You shouldn't be Mo'iz Paroi, which is represented by Yosef. Rather, you should take the Mo'iz of Hashem, which is the true shalom, not the shloim para that Yosef guarantees. And there it says, again, going back to Perek Lamed pasuk vav in Yeshai, pasuk Yud, I'm sorry, Asher amru lo royim lo yisiru. They told the seers not to see. Remember, this is the whole question. Vayisu einei vayiru. Do you see or don't you see? And they're asking them not to see. Suru mini derech hatu mini oirach. Ashpisu mipanenu es kedosh Yisrael. Remember, kedosh Yisrael is Yosef, and by the Shvatim fighting with Yosef, they lose their ability to see. Now go a little further. It says in pasuk Tezayin, it says Hashem wants you to go b'shuva v'nachas. Pasuk Tezvav. Hashem wants you to go b'shuva v'nachas and with security and strength, and you say no. Ki asus nonus. You say no. You know what? We trust the horses. This business of trusting the horses instead of trusting a deeper kind of strength is, of course, the military might of Mitzrayim. Okay. And here the pasuk is saying, you know what? Hashem really could have taken care of you without the horses. This is very important. This brings us to so we'll get to that soon. And then it says, L'chein yichaka Hashem l'chananchem. Because you didn't listen to Hashem to take the shuv of a nachas, instead of the and you said, no, we want the might of the horses, therefore Hashem will not be choinin you. But Hashem ashke kol choiche lo, if only you would wait for him. Ki am b'tzion, this brings us back to that pasuk. Ki am b'tzion yeshev b'Yushalayim. You don't have to run to Mitzrayim. You could stay in Tzion. B'choy loy sivke chonon yochnecha lekol zakecha. Hashem will listen to your cries and he'll give you chen. Elakim yochnecha kisham asay anach. What's he going to give you if you stay in Tzion in Yushalayim? V'nosan lecha Hashem lechem tzar umayim lachatz. V'lo yikonef oid merecha v'hoyu enecha rois. You'll be able to see. Okay, you'll be able to see. Now, this whole question of will you be able to see or not be able to see, and the other pasuk says just stay in Tzion and Hashem will give you. He won't give you shefa. He'll give you lechem tzar mayim lachatz instead of going down to Mitzrayim and looking for the horse. Now I want to explain what this is all about, and then we'll continue to learn some more from the Hemshech over here. Yosef saved himself and his family from the hunger through the Gevuras Asus and the Shoykei Ish. As we've discussed at length, that Yosef allied with Mitzrayim. Their might is represented by the Gevuras Hasos. And Shoykei Ish is because it says Yosef is 30 years old. Be'omdoi lifnei parah, be'omdoi ben shloshim lekoyach. So that's Shoykei Ish. And as it says in that Mizmor Kofem Zayin, what does Hashem really want? Yirei av hamayach l'mechastoi. And the corresponding Mizmor Lamed Gimel, it says, "Sheka so says Shua v'Echelo Yimalti Hine Hashem Yirei L'Mecham L'Chastoi." But I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Right? Right says Hashem Yirei L'Mecham L'Chastoi. Okay. In Lamed Gimel, it says, "In Hashem Yirei L'Mecham L'Chastoi L'Hatzim of Nashon L'Chayosam Bara'ov." So the chiyus from the Rav comes not through the sheker of the sus and not the Gevuras Shoykei Ish, rather through Yirei of. So there are two ways to get over the Rav. Either through the ambition and energy of a young man. That was Yosef's mahalach. The other mahalach was not by the 30-year-old, but by the 130-year-old, who was vaya'amideu lifnei parah. He didn't have the Shoykei Ish. He had to be propped up in front of parah. And he brought an end to the Rav through access to the Dvar Hashem, through being Yirei of, fearing Hashem. Okay, so now the pasuk over here in Yeshaya is saying like this. Hashem wanted us to have security through the Dvar Hashem, Shuva Vanachas. Instead, we say, no, we want the horses. So Hashem says, okay, listen, you could have stayed B'tzion, and then you would have had Chen, and then, what about the Rav? What are you going to do? You need to have power. You need to have a lot of money. No. So in other words, there's a possibility for you to see Hashem even when there's a Rav. And this is very interesting. Because Yaakov brought an end to the Rav and he brought Shefa. Yosef dealt with the Rav, he also brought Shefa. But Yaakov did it with the Dvar Hashem and Yosef did it without the Dvar Hashem. Yosef couldn't activate a Dvar Hashem that's going to bring Shefa. But he could have said, you know what? Lechem tzar mayim lachatz is enough for me. And then he would have had the Re'iyah. So in other words, he didn't have to replace the Dvar Hashem with the Gevuras Hasos and Shoykei Ish. The only reason he did that, the only reason he guaranteed Shloim Paroi, basically, the only reason he switched flags and joined Paroi's side is because he wanted more than Lechem tzar mayim lachatz. He wanted to take care of the Rav. But the pasuk in Yeshaya is offering an alternative, saying you could see Hashem and you'll have Lechem tzar mayim lachatz. So now L'Inyonenu, not L'Inyonenu yet. I want to now continue. I want to continue in Yeshaya, and then I want to bring it back to our pasuk in Binyamin. So first thing Yeshaya says is, okay, you could just have a small amount of bread and a small amount of water, and you'll see Hashem. And you'll be able to hear which way to go. Zeh haderech l'chubai. And then pasuk Chavbei says you'll throw out your afuda, masecha, tizveim k'madava. You'll contaminate, treat as defiled the getchkas or the trufim or the masecha and the ephod. We'll get to that soon. Trufim, I sort of gave it away there. Okay, we'll get to that soon. And then the pasuk says, now Hashem's going to make it rain. And now all of a sudden Hashem's going to make it rain, and it's going to be doshein v'shomein. So it starts off as saying Hashem will give you lechem tzar mayim lachat. So there seems to be a question of hunger. You go to Mitzrayim for hunger, and Yeshaya is suggesting an alternative: survive on a small amount of bread and see Hashem. And then what's going to happen is Hashem's going to make it rain. And he describes beautiful everything. There's going to be a shefa. When b'yoyim chavosh Hashem es shever amoy. Umachatz makosay yirpa. On the day of Chavosh Hashem es shever amoy umachatz makosay yirpa, that should remind you of Kof Mem Zayin, where it says Nidche Yisrael lichanes haroi filishvur levum b'chabesh atzvesam. And here it says Chavosh Hashem es shever amoy umachatz makosay yirpa. So haroi filishvur levum b'chabesh atzvesam. When he brings together Nidche Yisrael, that's when Hashalechem Rasay Oretz, and Hashem sends the rain, as Kof Mem Zayin says. So what the pasuk in Yeshaya is saying like this. Again, Hashem is offering you shuva babitcha, and you're like, no, I want horses. So Meil Hashem is not going to be choin in you. Otherwise, he could have been choin in you. He could have taken care of you with lechem tzar mayim lachatz, but you'll see Hashem, and you'll know which way to go. Instead, you say, no, suru mini derech, hashpisu mini oirach. We don't want Kadosh Yisrael. We don't want a connection with Hashem. We don't want Hashem to speak to us. Okay. Hashem is not going to speak to you, you're going to go for the horses. But if Hashem would speak to you and you would see Hashem, you'll first have lechem tzar mayim lachatz, and then the day will come, hang in there, you'll hang in there through the Rav, and then the day will come of Chavosh Hashem Sheva Amo Machatz Makosay Yirpa, and you're going to have a shefa, v'nosan lecha, v'nosan mitar zar achat. Hashem will give rain. Okay, that's the setup over there of Yeshaya. So what's happening over here then is that Yosef sees Binyamin and he cries. And Yeshaya is saying, no need to cry. Why? Because v'nosan Hashem lechem tzar mayim lachatz. And chonon yochnecha l'koil zakecha. Why is Hashem not being mechanan you? You know why Yoram Hashem lachananchem? You know why you don't have the chen of Hashem? Because you want the sus. So the tears that Yosef has from Binyamin is because there's a delay. Yosef is delaying the reunion through solving the Rav problem in his way, which is Gvuras Hasus. Because if he would say, look, you know what, Parai, I'm not a Mitzri. I belong in Tzion and Yerushalayim. And in Tzion and Yerushalayim, you know what happens? Sometimes there's a Rav. And that's how it goes, as we discussed in the beginning of Miketz. And that's because Hashem decides how much food we should have. But Hashem is deciding, this is what he could have told Parai, Hashem is deciding that you should have lechem tzar mayim lachatz. So that would have been instead of saying like this, look, naturally Hashem is sending us a Rav, let's do something to not be able to see Hashem, let's have soiva, that's Gvuras Hasus Shrei. Hashem wants you to be in tune with what He's doing and see what He's doing. How are you going to survive lechem tzar mayim lachatz? So at that point, the beginning of Parshas Miketz, Yosef could have announced that now Mitzrayim became like Tzion and Yerushalayim, as we discussed. In Mitzrayim too, there's lechem tzar mayim lachatz, and now we see Hashem here like we see him in Eretz Yisrael. And then there would have been a reunion of Yosef and his brothers much smoother and quicker, because then they're on the same page. But instead, Yosef looks for the Gvuras Hasus. Memela, the chen of Elikim is far from him. Memela, he cries because the reunion of him and his brothers is quite rocky and doesn't go smoothly. And that's the Navi saying, no need to cry. No need to cry. No, Hashem could be mechayin in you. You don't have to beg for it. Elikim yochnecha bani. It could be there. Automatically, all you have to do is accept the lechem tzar mayim lachatz instead of looking for the Gvuras Hasus. Okay, beautiful. Now, one more thing is like this. Two more things. I mentioned before that there in Yeshaya Perek Lamed, after this pasuk of lechem tzar mayim lachatz, and you'll be able to know which way to go. There it says in pasuk of Beis, "V'timeisem es tzipoy psilei chaspecha v'safedas v'safudas masechas zehovecha tizem k'modavot tzei toimaloi." So you're going to contaminate all your idolatrous kinds of materials, and you'll treat them like they're impure, like anida. Okay, so Yosef in our story is attached to his gvia, which is with which he's menachesh, and this brings us back to Rachel, who takes the trofim, and she sits on them and says, "Derech noshim li And from this pasuk Tizrim K'moidava, we learned that Avodah Zarah is Matame Kenida. So Yosef sees Binyamin Achiv Achi Imoy, and this brings us back to Rachel and her Derech Noshin and the Trofim that are associated with her. And there's the message over there is Timesem as Tzipoi Psilech Aspecha. The message of seeing Binyamin Achi Imoy is that the Trofim should be rejected. Okay, but just throwing that in there. And also one more thing is that in Pasuk of Aleph there it says Kisa Aminu, Chisa Smilu, so maybe Binyamin is Yemin. Fine. Last point I want to make is, we mentioned before in Yirmiyah Perek Vav, Pasuk Yudalid, it says that the false prophets offered Shalom, Shalom, Ve'ein Shalom, Havishu, and they really give Tabusha. They really need Tabusha. This is what we said, because the Mo'iz Paroi leads to Baishas, like it says in Yeshai, right? So there's the fake Shalom is Shloim Paroi, that leads to Baishas. In order not to have Baishas, you need the Shloim Hashem. And there in Yirmiyah Perek Vav it continues, Koyamar Hashem imdu al drochim, look on the roads and figure out which way to go, the derech hatoiv u'luchuba, and you said lo, and you'll find mergoya, you'll find calmness, and you said lo nelech. So this is exactly like it says in Yeshaya. In Yeshaya Perek Lamed, Hashem said to you, B'shuva v'nachas, v'lo yavisem, and you said no, we're going to run on a horse. And there it says, Hashem could have told you, Zeh derech l'chuba, you could have known which way to go on. Same way Yirmiyah says, don't get into the baishas of the fake shalom. Know which way to go by asking Nesivas Olam, asking what happened in the past. But no, instead you don't listen, you get the baishas, and the baishas is Mo'iz Mitzrayim. Okay, that will be all.